Welcome to 7-Minute News. My name is Mitchell Hanna. I'll be your host tonight. And tonight's top story is South Africa, where 2 million young people are unemployed or not enrolled in an educational institution. A brief history of the situation: in 2009, when their current president Jacob Zuma was elected, there was a lot of controversy surrounding him, including rape charges as well as very questionable arms deals. At the same time, a couple years later, he fired his Minister of Finance, and that really created a shaky start to the economy from his election. And now live onto our social anthropologist, Brooke Mickle, who's currently in Cape Town, South Africa. Brooke?
Thanks, Mitchell. Here in South Africa, miseducation among the population concerning HIV/AIDS is troubling because a lot of people are too sick to work, and that's part of the reason unemployment is such a big problem. Another reason is due to illiteracy in English, which puts them at a disadvantage in most jobs, which primarily require English. Back to you, Mitchell.
All right. And to make matters worse, the President Jacob Zuma was heard saying that he had a lesser chance of getting the virus because he showered with a woman after sexual intercourse. Now we're going to hear from our global correspondent, Justin Aries.
Thank you, Mitchell. Now, how do politics and foreign policy affect South Africa's unemployment? Well, South Africa's current president, Jacob Zuma, certainly never has had success with promoting economic growth or reducing the unemployment rate during his tenure in office. And the current political turbulence he is creating doesn't seem to be helping right now, either, as the people seem to be largely discontent in a polarized state where they either really support him or really don't support him. All the while, South Africa's largest trading partner, China, purchases more than 50% of South African commodities. And well, when Chinese economy fails, so does South African. And this will put unemployment in a downward spiral. Jacob Zuma currently is very supportive of this policy and wants it to continue, placing South Africa in a very unstable state where it is extremely dependent on Chinese economy.
Thanks, Justin. Now on to our economist, Grant He, who's currently in South Africa.
Thanks, Mitchell. Glad to be on the show. So in South Africa, which is where I am right now, we have seen an overall decrease in inflation and wealth inequality from the past decade. However, there has also been an overall decrease in GDP and an overall increase in unemployment. These indicators signal the country's progress toward achieving stability and equity and a regression in growth and employment. As to the recent hikes in unemployment, especially significant among the youth, there could be several causes. First of all, South Africa's economy relies heavily on mining and mineral processing industries to succeed, so the global drop of profitability of many of these natural resources, leading to the shrinkage or stagnation of these sectors. This contraction would unemploy thousands of workers and prevent prospective youth workers to find jobs. This effect is especially true for job creation at the relatively low end of this skill distribution, where most youth workers are employed. We economists call this a product of structural unemployment. Another point of concern is the South African government's relatively generous social programs and enactments. Most economists agree that the politically powerful trade unions in South Africa have driven wages significantly higher than the labor market's economic equivalence point, essentially creating a price floor that naturally produces a surplus of unemployed workers. Additionally, the large amounts of government transfer payments to households has decreased labor force participation, as these populations have been reported to observe paid employment as a substitute to what they already receive. The South African government has basically accidentally created an incentive for discouraging employment. So in the past decade, since President Zuma has been elected into office, he has focused his government on controlling inflation rather than addressing the nation's unemployment crisis. However, recently, in their most annual report, I noticed that there was an area that they specifically focused on tertiary education spending. Of the total incomes of 63 billion rands for higher education, government grants accounted for 43% of this total cost, which roughly equals 27 billion rands. This directly tackles concerns economists have with job skill training. Additionally, the government has implemented a law called the Employment Tax Incentive Act, also known as the ETI, since 2014. This allows companies to claim back some tax for employing young workers that adhere to certain requirements. This law essentially creates an incentive for companies to hire these young workers to receive on-job paid experience. These ETIs supposedly have a short-term effect of decreasing youth unemployment and a long-term effect of expanding tertiary industries for overall economic and labor market growth. The ideal effect of the ETI would be training the current youth populations with valuable job experience in tertiary industries so that the markets would expand to enable future generations to be employed with relevant jobs. However, in reality, this ETI Act has not achieved the desired effect to a significant enough degree. The youth unemployment has increased since the law's implementation in 2014. The current situation is highly unsustainable. A 2015 policy by OECD about high youth unemployment in South Africa shared a list of future actions for South African policymakers to enact. This report suggested, among other ideas, investment in the quality and quantity of education, especially vocational education, promotion of entrepreneurship, and improvement of job quality for youth and employment. Unless if these actions are attempted, there would most likely be a highly unsustainable future.
Thanks, Grant. Job sectors have taken a huge hit, with the people unemployed going from 422,000 to 6.3 million in recent years. Unemployment is at an all-time high of 27% since apartheid ended in 1994. And these photographs behind me show the current devastation of the economic situation in South Africa. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. This is Mitchell Hanna from 7 Minute News, signing off.